Awesome. Well, amazing, everybody. Thank you for showing up. And this is a burnout workshop to renew the badass in you. I really love it. I find that title fun. But we're going to kind of start diving into it. Let me get onto the right screen and start off by introducing myself. So hello, everybody. My name is Marissa, and I am a burnout coach, a wilderness expert, a wilderness professional. I've spent the last decade of my life facilitating wilderness experiences, which we'll get a little bit more into that. But why do I focus on burnout, and why do I primarily work with women? This is the first thing that I'm going to start off with. And the answer to both of those questions is burnout is so real. We all know what it feels like. We all know like somebody who is burnt out. And I think this past year, it has only become more and more obvious how detrimental it's becoming and how exhausting it's becoming. So raise your hand if you are not showing your face. That's okay, but also feel free to be here and be present. Put your video on. I love to see your little faces because you guys are actually little in the screen. But amazing. So yes, thank you. Yes, people are showing their faces. Party dance. Yes, yes. Hello, amazing. Thank you, beautiful humans. So why do I focus on burnout? So raise your hand or say yes in the chat, whatever, if you personally would identify with being called burnt out or saying like, I feel burnt out. Let me know. Yes, got a hand raised. Kind of, sort of, maybe a little bit. I can't see everybody. So if you are raising your hand, I can't see everybody at once. There's a bunch of y'all. But I primarily work with women, one, because I am a woman, and two, because I see burnout as a very different thing in women than it is for men. And we'll get a little bit deeper into that coming up. But know that this past year, I've become passionately obsessed with burnout and learning more. So burnout isn't sexy and it shouldn't own your time because you should. That is like my belief. I want so badly for people to feel like they can own their time, because what is so intense is that feeling that you can't stop. That's what burns us out. That's part of it. It's like, I have to keep working. I have to keep doing the dishes, and I got to keep cooking, and I got to keep like making sure the car doesn't fall apart and making sure that the yard isn't a mess. Like there's all of these duties that we have as we get older that we forget about and we haven't quite learned how to manage. So I focus specifically on using nature and the wilderness to help heal burnout, because they are one of the most, in my belief, underused resources that we have. And I think they're incredible ways to start like getting grounded and healing your burnout. So we're going to go through the two ways that I support people are in two different like venues. One is a 3-day event out here in Southern Utah called Solitude. And the other one is an online course. And this is a 6-week course. Both of these are created to help you heal your burnout and get to the root cause. Because in my mindset, I see tons of information out there about ways to help healing it, or like maybe I should start setting a new boundary. But I think a big reality is so many of us are so busy and so exhausted that we don't even have time to set a new boundary, or we don't have the energy to even look at what is burning us out, what is stressing us out. Or maybe we think it's our work, but it's actually work paired with our relationship because we haven't quite dove into all of that. So does that make sense? So my whole theory is to get down to like, what is truly burning us out? What is the things? So this next one is going to require you guys all to participate in some way. So get ready. But what is burnout? And well, we'll focus on the second question later, but what is burnout? What is your burnout? How would you describe it? What are the words? What is the feeling? What is burning you out? What are along those lines? What do you guys think burnout is? And type it in the chat and let's kind of like jam on this for a minute. Exhausted. Yes. Exhausted. Yes. Other people. Ooh, anxiety, feeling exhausted, losing motivation, overwhelmed, giving until you can't anymore. Yes. If you are not muted, make sure you guys all mute yourself too, because I didn't have that as automatically happening. People pleasing, hard to function, overwhelmed. Let's see what else is in here. Unable to move forward, burnout. Yes, but actually, lack of ability to care, loneliness, deadliness. Yes, definitely exhaustion, loss of interest in what you used to be passionate about. Yes, these are all great answers. And then, excuse me, I have a cough. But all of these answers are just such like real. And I think we can all like feel that very visceral reaction when we feel them. It's like that loneliness, that deadliness, that exhaustion, that people pleasing, and that inability to create change around it. So how is burnout different in women and men? So we're going to go on to the next one. So burnout is categorized in these 3 different ways, and we're going to go into each of them a little bit more in depth. Emotional exhaustion, depersonalization, and a decreased sense of accomplishment. Interestingly enough, you guys all pretty much said something along those lines within how you define burnout and how it feels and what's going on. And one of the biggest things that I like to bring up is how it is different between women and men. And that's why I specifically cater to women, because they're different and we both need help. And this doesn't mean that men can't feel this way. It just means that typically they experience it differently. So big picture, macro, and that doesn't mean it's the only way. So women typically, this is information coming from the book Down Girl, The Logic of Misogyny. It's by Kate Main. It's this entire book about tons of all the different ways that misogyny manifests and what it's looking like based on research. So women are socialized to be pretty, happy, calm, generous, and attentive to the needs of others. A big piece of that is that those don't feel like choices. Those feel like things that we just do regardless. Whereas men typically are not socialized to feel like they have to be pretty and happy and calm and generous and attentive to the needs of others all the time. And we see it all the time. We see it in boardrooms, we see it in meetings, we see it in our home life. I would imagine most of you women on this call are more attentive to the needs of your household than your partner, than your male counterpart if you live with a man. So I know that I will see the dishes need to be done probably before my partner. And that doesn't mean it's the only way. Some men are better at it than women. And this is a very general picture. Another thing that is different between men and women is women typically in our society are not taught to find purpose and meaning at a young age. And that manifests and builds throughout their lives. So if we don't have purpose and meaning, it makes stress harder. And we'll get into that a little bit later on, but the idea that like the only reason we can have kids, because those kids are super stressful. Raise your hand if you have kids. If you do have kids, you can probably say that it's very stressful. There's a lot of stress associated with like having a child. And with that stress, you can bear the amount of stress that parents can bear is remarkable. And it's because there is so much purpose and meaning associated with raising a child. And that is pretty much the only purpose and meaning that women, if we're going into like a very basic thing, it's like we're socialized to want that and we're asked about it. And even in our most forward-thinking world, people ask us about having kids or getting married, and that as being the biggest purpose. So, and the other one goes into expectations. Women simply have to do more to be seen at the same level as men. And I would like to say, I don't think it's a fault of anybody's except for our society. Like it's not our fault, but it's our responsibility to change this moving forward. Does that make sense? Raise your hand, say yes. We're gonna kind of move on into like more of the causes of burnout, okay? Awesome. Thank you guys for participating. I love it. I love it. So the causes of burnout, I touched on these briefly and we're gonna go a little bit more into depth into each of them. So the first one is emotional exhaustion. And what that means is doing too much for too long. I should really move that one to the last because I like talking about it the most, but I'm gonna skip over that one right now and move into depersonalization. Emotional exhaustion is often the thing that is burning out women more than men. Depersonalization and a decreased sense of accomplishment, both of those kind of go between both people. So depersonalization is the depletion of empathy, caring, or compassion. That is that feeling that you just don't care anymore. It doesn't matter, whatever you do. It's just like, it's no longer feeling that care that you used to have for your coworkers, maybe for your partner. I think depersonalization shows up in relationships a lot, when you're just kind of turning into roommates, when you live with a partner, somebody that you love a lot, and there's just like, you're burnt out on everything else. You're burnt out on the relationships sometimes, and you're just not giving that compassion and care like you used to. A decreased sense of accomplishment. This is a huge one. And this shows up, I think, in like a really great example is healthcare workers. Another great example is like teachers. It's that feeling that nothing you do matters. When you're constantly coming up against a wall, that is exhausting. And it doesn't feel as though there's any return. Like, why continue to do the same thing if everybody is just like, it's not making any difference? I think during the pandemic, like I know during the pandemic, every nurse that I've talked to, it's like they are so burnt out because it's just like the same thing. Doctors are going through the same thing. Like everybody is going through this intensity of nothing that I do matters. And that is a very like big example. And that shows up in other ways. Like maybe every time you talk to your boss, it's the same crap. And they are not nice to you, or they're talking down to you, or they're not helping you feel empowered, which in my opinion is your boss's job. Like they should want you to be the best version of yourself so that you can produce the best for the company. And if they are not helping to empower you move to there, why would you want to do anything else? Like, why would you want to try harder? It would just be depleting. So emotional exhaustion is the last one that I'm going to kind of get into right now. Emotional exhaustion. To get into emotional exhaustion, we first have to talk about emotions. Emotions, let's think of them as a tunnel. Okay, so stay with me here. In order to be done with an emotion, you have to get all the way through the tunnel to the light. And that tunnel can be however long as it needs to be. And that happens with every single emotion that we have. So you have an emotion, you feel it, you get to the other side, it's done. What emotional exhaustion is you have an emotion and you can't get to the other side, and you get stuck in the middle of that tunnel. This happens a lot with women. It happens sometimes with men, but I think men oftentimes, I think the biggest failure of our society, one of the ones I think that we're working on like in like the male counterpart, is the idea of, and recognize I'm talking in binary terms, and this is a big like scale. But men typically are not as in tune with their emotions, so they kind of sit differently. And sometimes they are, and they just have an easier time letting go of things. They have an easier time just getting to that other side. So women, we will feel something. Maybe somebody's being a jerk at work and you don't like them and they said something mean, but it's not socially acceptable. It's not responsible to, in that moment, feel that emotion fully, because you got other crap to do. Like life is busy and you probably have a million things on your to-do list. So you kind of push that emotion over for later. But the thing is, that emotion is still there and your body is still feeling it. If we never complete that and get to the other side, then you're stuck in that emotion, and that is stress that is sitting in you. We're going to get a little bit more into the difference between stress and stressors on the next slide. But I want to talk about the idea that like we can see people moving through emotions really well if we think about children. And I love using this around a kid at some point in our lives. And you can maybe remember this as like a young kid, but it's the idea that when we are young, when the worst thing in the world happens to us, like the very worst thing in the world happens to us, most kids throw a temper tantrum, or they scream, or they yell, or they cry, and they let it out. They fully like feel that emotion. And sometimes it's wild and crazy and it takes a long time or something. But at the end of it, they're done. You'll see it in kids all the time. Like once that bad thing is done and they express it and they move through it, they are no longer worried about the fact that you took away their toy, and all of a sudden they're excited playing in the sand and it's not a big deal. Does anybody, all of you guys who have kids or around kids, like, is that coming online? Is that something that you see in them? Like raise your hand or say yes or something along those lines if you like can picture a kid moving through an emotion quickly. Yes. Amazing. Thank you. Thank you for participating. All right, so to talk more about, those are the causes of burnout, like big picture causes. The other part of it is the difference between stress and the stressor, because this will help explain everything else. So stress, and this is how we actually heal it. This is how we move through it, and like the things that we start using. In order to heal our burnout, we have to know the difference between the two and know the difference between our body and our mind. So stress is the neurological, physiological response that your body is going through. This is something that you don't have control over. This is something that is going to happen regardless of the fact that you're going to like push that away. So maybe somebody is being a jerk at work and you don't have time to move through your stress cycle because you got something else to do. So that stress is sitting in your body. We're going to go into what that neurological, physiological response looks like in a little bit. So that stress is sitting in your body. The stressor is the actual jerk at work that we hate, that we don't like, that sucks, that whatever. Or the stressor is the kid screaming while you're trying to do everything else. Or the stressor is that the car is suddenly going to break down, or the weather is really bad and you had all these plans and whatever. So the stressor is the actual trigger itself. Stress is the neurological, physiological thing. I want to point out here that stress manifests the exact same way, regardless of the fact if you're being chased by a lion or if you're finishing your taxes. Like no matter what you're doing, your body's stress response is no different. Does that make sense? Yes, 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 let me know. I'm going to move on. Okay. So we're going to go into now, let's talk about you guys and what you guys are managing and dealing with in your lives. So what is burning you out? What are your stressors? I put a few pictures on here because these are like things like my relationship sometimes burns me out. Sometimes being around a bunch of kids or my dog stresses me out. Sometimes my pressure that I put on myself to work out stresses me out. Sometimes just like the amount of pressure that I'm putting on myself is just stressing me out. Does that make sense? So what are your guys' stressors? Put them in the chat so that we can kind of go over them. And I'll give you guys a minute to think on like your top stressors, the things that are burning you out, okay? Type them in the chat when you're ready. And it doesn't have to be in depth. It can be quick, like my kids, my dog, my relationship, career uncertainty, yes. The amount of things I commit to, yes. Managing a large team. Finances, absolutely. That's a huge stressor. Work, figuring out next career steps, yes. House stuff, plus baby, plus full-time job, plus relationships, yes. Oh my goodness. Business development, balancing work and home, managing home and work. Thank you. Figuring out next career steps, house stuff, plus baby, plus full-time job, man. And I think like the beautiful thing to like point out here is how burnout and stressors are vast. It's most people here are saying that it's not just work, because it just isn't. And maybe it's a portion of it. Maybe it's a mindset. But there are so many things that go into burnout and stress. So before we go into completing our stress cycle, what it looks like and things that you can change, I love this quote. So this is why I put it on here. So wellness is the freedom to move fluidly through the cycles of being human. Wellness is thus not a state of being, it is an action. And what that means to me, that is by Amelia and Emily Nagoski. They are the authors of Burnout, The Secret to Unlocking the Stress Cycle, where I got a lot of my research from, as well as a few different resources as well. But what that means is the idea isn't to feel like without stress. The idea is to manage our stress and to start off with, we have to pinpoint our chronic stressors, because those are the things that we need to change in our lives, because we're going to have stress in your life. You always will have stress in your life. But if you aren't completing your stress cycle, then it's hard to know what stress is chronic and what stress is just building up, because they're little like side note stressors. Like maybe you have this big project that you're working on with work, and then there's also all these little things. So the big project at work might be the main thing that you're managing, but the little things are also important to take into account. And it's a fluid system. It's not perfect. It's not about like moving perfectly through. I bet a bunch of y'all on here are overachievers, high achievers. You love to do a great job. You're really good at what you do probably as well. And with that, completing your stress cycle and managing your burnout isn't a perfect system. So let's go into what the stress cycle actually does to your body. So there's a lot of text on here. I'm going to go into it. Don't worry about managing it, or don't worry about like memorizing it or anything like that, but take this into account. Maybe close your eyes for a second. So the things that, imagine yourself, something stressful happens, something with your business, something with your kids, something at work, something with sports or at home, figuring out next career steps, finances, all of these things that are stressful. And what is happening in your body, the physiological, neurological thing that is happening is your epinephrine acts instantly to push more blood through your muscles. So think about this as if this entire system, the stress system, was created for a more primitive version of ourselves, which is like if you're running from a lion, or if you're like in like more primitive times, like you just need to be able to do something different. So epinephrine acts instantly to push more blood into your muscles, which means that they will work better. Endorphins are helping you to ignore the discomfort, so you won't feel something as well if you are stressed out. Those endorphins are going to make you like ignore the fact that like your stomach is hurting really bad, or ignore the fact that you like just stepped on something pokey. Your heart beats faster, which pumps more blood, which also equals blood pressure increases. This is why heart disease is so closely related to stress, because the stress is literally making your heart beat faster. If you can change that, which we're going to talk about on the next slide, which is completing the stress cycle, then you're going to help your body chill out after something stressful happens. So you start breathing more quickly, your muscles start to tense, you have your sensitivity to pain diminishes. This is a really interesting thing that I think is really important, and it's really important for me to remember as well, which is our attention is on alert. We are focusing on short-term, here and now thinking. This is why big decisions should not be made in a point of stress. So let's complete our stress cycle. Let's try to like get something going. And with that, because then your attention can go somewhere else, and your brain can think more clearly. Because if you're making decisions, and making decisions on short-term, here and now thinking is super effective if you're being chased by something that's bad. Like you need to be able to think really quickly and make it work right now. This is not long-term thinking. Does that make sense? Your senses are heightened. That's why when we're like, I bet a lot of women have this experience, probably men less so, just the reality is when you feel stressed, or if you feel like you're in danger, I think about the times that I've been like walking home late at night in a new neighborhood that I maybe wasn't supposed to, like that's new to me and doesn't feel safe as other places. Or maybe you're like entering like a party of a bunch of people that you've never met before, and that feels really stressful to you. All of a sudden you like, your senses are heightened, like you can hear a little bit better. You're like more in tune with your body, more in tune with the space. So that's very real. And then this last one is, I think, the most interesting, and probably like the thing that most of us manage the most. So to maximize our body's efficiency in this state, your other organ systems are deprioritized, meaning your digestive system is slowing, your immune function shifts, growth and tissue repair decrease, as well as reproductive functioning. So when we are stressed out, we gain weight because our digestive system is not working properly, or we have stomach problems, or we have irritable bowel syndrome, or we're feeling nauseous all the time. All of those things are due to the fact that you are in stress and your body is not prioritizing your digestive system. Our immune function shifts. So oftentimes people will, people make note of this all the time. Think about like maybe an academic. So an academic, they're working on their big thesis, and at the end of their thesis, they turn it in, everything is good, and they get sick immediately. So their body held out the entire time that they were working on something. And the second that you were done with that, your immune system was like, okay, I'm gonna get sick now. And that's a super common thing for people. High stress situation, at the end of that high stress situation, we get really sick. Growth and tissue repair decreases, as well as reproductive functioning. So reproductive functioning, that means that oftentimes women and men have a more difficult time getting pregnant or reproducing when they are stressed. And I've actually heard many examples of this. So that's all what's happening in your body. Does anybody have any questions about what's happening in your body? We're going to go into completing the stress cycle next. That explains the weight gain. Absolutely. And it happens to all of us. Like, I think the beautiful thing is remembering that we're going to, let's just get into completing the stress cycle. That's fun. So completing the stress cycle. Like to know what I was so stressed about in February. Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's more underlying, and there's also, we don't always give it the attention that it needs, and it doesn't mean that they're directly related. You know, sometimes one of those things happens, whatever, either way. So completing the stress cycle. This means that something stressful happens and you're gonna help your body complete that cycle because that stressful thing is no longer happening, yet your body has not been cued into knowing that. So oftentimes with us, we're not like running away from a lion. I would really hope none of you guys are. That would be really, really weird and unfortunate. When you're running away from the lion, you're actually doing this thing that you need to be doing, which is like you are moving your body. So at the end, so a jerk at work. I'm just keep going back to that example because it's really vague, and I think we all kind of have like a story in our heads of somebody who sucks that you've had to deal with at work. That stressful thing happens. You need to do something, even if your brain has moved through it and you've carried on into the rest of the things in your life. You need to tell your body that it's done being stressed out. So the ways to do this, super effective ways, is one, getting into nature, getting outside, any way, shape, or form in a non-stressful way. So if the environment of being in nature is another stressor, it's not effective. That makes sense. Obviously, like walking through the park and then all of a sudden like a thunderstorm comes in and you're not used to that and you don't know how to manage it, like that's more stressful. However, just walking through the park is a great way. So getting into the nature, what that actually does is it's letting your brain replenish itself. So throughout the day, we're using what we call directed attention. And directed attention is the amount of work that your brain is using to get things done all day, every day. We use it, especially, it's like a survival technique. And in our society currently, there are so many things happening that our brains actually haven't developed fast enough. So our directed attention is getting exhausted really quickly. So this is what you're using to write emails. This is what you're using to cross the street and not get hit. This is what you're using to bring your attention back to your computer after your phone dings. This is what you're using when you're driving and there's flashing billboards and then your kid is screaming in the back and you still have to like figure out where you're going and you look at your Google Maps and you're like, okay, take this exit. That is all what we're using when we're using our directed attention. So in our lives today, that gets depleted very quickly, meaning that getting into nature is one of the most effective ways to replenish it. Why? Why is the wilderness, why is nature just so effective? And it's because nature is taking our attention modestly. So all of those things are aggressively taking our attention. Think about like how aggressive it is when you're like walking down the street and somebody's honking their horn and your phone's digging, like there's just things boom, boom, boom all the time. When you're in nature and you're trying to slow down, this is being in nature without your phone. Or maybe you have your phone, but you have it on silent mode, or you have it on airplane mode, or something along those lines. But getting into nature is not aggressively taking your attention. It's kind of slowly bringing it in. And I bet every single one of you can talk about the amount of calm that you feel when you're watching a sunset. Like raise your hand, type yes if you love watching sunsets, or even if you don't love it, like, or sunrises. Does that feel calming to you to see that? Yes, yes. So we feel more calm when there are sunsets. And that is because it is a very modest and beautiful way that we are focusing our attention. Like we love sunsets. Like it steals our attention, but it's not stealing our attention in the same way that your phone is. Does that make sense? So getting into nature is one of the best ways to help all of these other things. So ways of actually completing your stress cycle and cueing to your body, it's not enough to just get outside. That is an incredible way to do it, but doing some sort of movement is super important. Love, and it's relaxing. Oh, yes, exactly. I love sunsets. So moving your body for 20 to 30 to 60 minutes. 60 is like the gold standard, and it's about trying. It's about doing it and starting it. Honestly, sometimes I don't have time for 20 minutes. Sometimes I walk 5 minutes out the door and 5 minutes back. That is 10 minutes of moving your body. And this can be walking, this can be dancing, this can be running, this can be swimming, this can be anything. But what this does after you experience a stressful thing is it allows your body to be like, oh, I'm safe again. Like all of this stuff happened, but like this physical response, like this is cueing to my brain, to that lizard, that low part of your brain, that you are okay and that you are safe again. Okay. So moving for 20 to 30 to 60 minutes. Incredible way. That's probably the most effective way to complete your stress cycle. That is why exercise is so good for your health. Honestly, it's less about how fit you are and more about how your body is responding. It's actually, that's another talk. We'll talk about that one at a different burnout workshop. But less effective, but still quite effective ways to complete your stress cycle. And these are things that you can start trying today. These are the action steps. And I'll talk about why these action steps are so important here in a minute. So less effective ways, but still quite effective ways. One, breathing. This can look like a few deep breaths. If you're into breathing exercises, this can be breathing exercises. In my online course that I talked about there at the beginning and moving forward, I'll be talking about a little bit, is I have breathing exercises in there specifically that are aimed towards helping you in this, in completing your stress cycle. Positive social interaction. So this can look like having a nice short conversation with somebody at the checkout line. This can be like a neighbor passing by and just saying hi. This can be anything. But what a positive social interaction does is it's cueing to your brain that the world is safe again. So when we're in stress, our body is saying, nothing is safe, and I need to be ready to flee at any moment. So when we have a positive social interaction, that is allowing us for our brains to know like, oh, I'm safe again. It's totally fine. Laughter. And what is so important about laughter is it can't be fake laughter. It can't be like polite laughter. Like you're like, ha ha ha, that was funny at like a social gathering. No, this is like big belly laughter. This is why comedy is so healing. This is why we love stand-up. This is why we love watching funny videos on the internet, because when we belly laugh, that is a way that we are cueing to our brain that we are safe again. And I want to point out that the laughter and the affection and the crying, all of these things do not have to be directly related or at the same time as the thing that stressed you out. So maybe the thing that stressed you out is one thing, and you're probably not laughing at that thing, but you're going to laugh at something. And that is cueing to your body that you do not need to be stressed anymore. Okay, the next one is affection. And they have actually in the book by Emily and Amelia Nagoski, they have this beautiful way of saying it. And the way that it's most effective is a 6-second kiss or a 20 to 30 second hug. And so why that amount of time? Because the actual amount of time is less important, but the purpose behind it is what's important. So 6 seconds to kiss somebody is too long to be kissing somebody that you don't feel safe with and that you don't love or like. Simple enough. 20 to 30 second hug of you both. This is an interesting, like intentional thing they put in there, is each person holding their own weight and hugging each other. What that does is that is also cueing to each other and to yourself, your brain, that you are safe again. 20 to 30 seconds is too long to be hugging somebody that you don't like or you don't love. Do you guys agree? I would imagine you do. So the last two, a big cry. Oftentimes people ask me, like, does it matter why I'm crying or what's coming up for me? No, it actually doesn't. So maybe you're not crying about like the stressor. Maybe you're watching your favorite movie that makes you cry every single time, your favorite tearjerker movie, or maybe you're crying about like your favorite TV show or your book or whatever. But the fact that you're crying, like a big, like solid cry, that is telling your body that it can be done with this emotion. The idea is that you are feeling an emotion and that you are moving through it And that is cueing your body that it can be done being stressed or in the state of stress. And the last one is creative expression. This can be drawing, this can be pottery, this can be music. This is why music is actually really healing as well, especially when you're playing it. As I see this in my husband uses creative expression probably the most of all of these because he's a musician. And he will just play music and all of a sudden I can just see that calm coming over him. So everybody type in the chat any brief questions. We'll have a little bit more time for questions at the end, but which one of these are you most excited to try? Breathing, positive social interaction, laughter, if this is news, like which one are you most psyched about? Type it in the chat. Let's see it. Creative expression, breathing exercise, yes. Anybody else? Anything new on here? Positive social interaction. I love positive social interaction because sometimes when I'm in a fight with like my partner or I'm angered about work or something and I'm just stressed, kissing, yes, very fun one. Positive social interaction can be so nice. It's like really acceptable in society. It's really easy to do. It's really easy to find. It's like going to the store and like buying your groceries and just having a positive conversation with the checkout line person is like a very simple one for me. Creative expression, yes. And my number one thing is that I try to do, honestly, is some sort of movement. Having a nice big cry to let out all the bad feelings, yes. It blows my mind every time I have a solid cry, how much less stressed I feel. Like I literally cannot believe it, how amazing it is. But my movement that I choose is I go rock climbing, and the area that I live in actually recently got a rock climbing gym, which is amazing, and allows me to go in the summer, because in the summer it's so hot here. It's really hard to actually climb outside here in the summer, which is kind of the opposite for everywhere else in the world. So now I can like fit it into my schedule really easily, and it's awesome. I try to hike a few times a week. Feels good to sweat. Yes. Oh my God, yes. And it's literally helping your brain. And that small movement doesn't need to be like, remember, it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't. It's just about doing it. So the next thing, hold on. Let's see if I can go on this. There we go. All right, everybody here, take a minute to close your eyes. If you don't have that ability, come back to this, but everybody please try to take a moment to close your eyes and take a deep breath. Let it out. Relieving that stress cycle if you feel any stress right now. And I'm just gonna go through a few questions here to kind of like add on here. So what if you could let go of the pressure? The pressure of work, the pressure of your family, the pressure of your partnership, wherever that pressure is coming from. What if you could let go of that pressure? And what if you could feel and be more creative and efficient? Take a moment to really sit into that. What would it feel like if you could let go of the pressure and be more creative and efficient? What would your life look like? How would that be different? What if you didn't have to dread every meeting that you were going to or that you were attending online? But instead of dreading that meeting, you were excited to share your new ideas. So sit in that feeling. The dread isn't there, and you're just, think about maybe even when you first started working there, or like after like the first couple of months, how excited you were to bring these ideas to others. And my last point here is, what if you didn't have to quit your job to stop feeling burnt out? This is my big thing, because sometimes we need to quit our job. Sometimes the job environment is unhealthy. Sometimes it's not the job though. So what if you didn't have to quit your job to stop feeling burnt out? What if you didn't have to start over at a new place? Take a deep breath and kind of sit into that. Now, If you want to unmute yourself and share, I would love to hear things that come up for you guys, or type it in the chat. Like, what did it feel like to sit in those feelings? Like being creative again, like being excited to share, feeling efficient again, and not having to quit your job. Like, what came up for you guys? And I'll give it a minute because I know it can kind of take a second to think about it and type it out. So let me know, what did that feel like? Does anybody want to share? What does it feel like? What does it feel like to sit in those feelings? My neck relaxed, my shoulders, and just general relaxation. Yes. Anybody else? Did you notice anything else physical? Felt relaxing to imagine that. Yes. Relief. Yeah. God, that feeling of relief. It's like the weight is off the shoulders. There's so many people here. Anybody else? Fun. Thank you for those of you who are up on video. Without the pressure from work and home, I could work on something that I am passionate about. Ooh, that's a good one. Something that you are passionate about. I wonder what it like, write that down for yourself, like wanting to work towards that. Anybody else have anything they want to share? Anything else that came up that could bring my best self to everything I do? And that's the point. I want to talk about that. Like, the point of what I do is to help you guys be your best self so that you can do what you're made to do on this planet. I'm obsessed with that because it's worth it. So getting to the root cause, why? You deserve to heal your burnout. I think with women, we have so much guilt and shame around putting ourselves first. If you're a woman, tell me if that's true, that you feel guilt sometimes about putting yourself first, or you're struggling to put your needs in front of others. And men, let me know if you feel that, or if you see it in the women around you. Mom guilt, yes, 100%. And you might not use the word guilt. That might be a triggering word for you, but there might be something holding you back from truly like going into what you can do. It's like, no, I can handle this. I can persevere. I am strong enough. Women oftentimes show up as feeling as though they are strong enough to push through this challenge. So why do anything else? Okay, so why do you deserve more than a Band-Aid? You deserve more than a Band-Aid because that's what's going to help. When I'm talking about completing that stress cycle, the thing about starting to complete the stress cycle that is so wonderful is it shows us what are chronic stressors and what are just momentary stressors. So if the same thing keeps coming up every single day and you keep having to complete your stress cycle, and I mean, we have to complete it most days. However, the point is not to feel 100% better, it's to feel incrementally better. When we're completing our stress cycle, you might have chronic stress that's built up over years, over months, over days, over weeks, whatever it is. That chronic stress isn't going to go away with one walk, but it's about slowly feeling better over time. Does that make sense? So I'm going to go into what the Burnout Root Cause course, this online course, and how it helps burnout and stress specifically. So the Burnout Root Cause course, it's a 6-week supported online course where you will go from being burnt out on self-care practices to understanding the root cause of your burnout. And I want to go back to that first sentence, being burnt out on self-care practices. Who here has been like, okay, so I'm burnt out, I'm stressed. I got to start doing yoga. I got to start eating the green smoothie. I got to start doing all of these things to feel better. Like, I'm going to do all of these things. Raise your hand or say yes in the chat if that is something that you've done before. Yes, absolutely. We get burnt out on trying to heal. It's really hard. And an example that I like to bring up is the idea of if you're in a room and you paint the dingiest wall, that only makes the other walls seem more dingy. So does that make sense? Like you're painting a wall in a room and you paint the one wall that's the most dingy. The rest of them suddenly need to be painted as well. And that's that ripple effect of self-care. Sometimes self-care practices only maximize our other stressors because all of a sudden we don't have time to finish it. Or all of a sudden we're like making ourselves feel badly about not getting the yoga done or not getting the meditation done or something along those lines. So what I do with the root cause course is I help you guys get to the root cause of the burnout because that's what needs to change. That's what we need to work on. And then you can understand it moving forward. Knowing that the stress, knowing how the stress is sitting in your body. I've had clients have a vast scale of where the stress is in their body. Some people have chronic neck pain. Some people have chronic back pain. And something that I bring up is what if you didn't have those chronic bodily stressors? Like how much would you save in like medical bills? Like that's a big one for a few of my clients. It's like, man, like I keep having this chronic pain and it's actually starting to shift with my mindset shift, which is simply because your body and your muscles are not contracting and they're not pushing so much blood and exhaustion into them. With this online course, I love to help you guys move into loving your relationships again and not having your relationships be a stressor to add to your burnout. Because we all know that feeling of a relationship becoming more and more stressful. Yes? Yes. Rocking your meetings again, because that feeling of heading into a meeting and like feeling like you are excited to be there, you are made to be there, this is your spot, that's amazing. Having action steps to curate the empowerment. So what this means is every single week you have within that 6-week program, you have the opportunity to sign up for 45-minute weekly burnout coaching calls with me. Every week, we will create action steps to help you curate that empowerment, to start feeling that, to start literally creating change. And today, my goal for each of you today is to start completing your stress cycle. Like every day, start trying to get a walk in, start trying to like have that kiss, so they have that positive social interaction, play the guitar, whatever it is, start doing something to complete your stress cycle. Completing your stress cycle alone will not simply heal your burnout because if those stressors keep coming up, you're going to be stuck in that loop and you're never going to catch up. Does that make sense? Like the point is you complete your stress cycle so that you can think clearly to create boundaries, to create change in your life. But if you're in a state of stress, your brain will not be able to create a good action plan that is going to be helpful moving forward. Does that make sense? So the next thing, that is the one way that I support folks is with the Burnout Root Cause course. That is what it is about. Solitude, the event. This is a 3-day event that takes place out here in Southern Utah. This event is like, it is so good. I wish I had something else to say, but it's the idea that like when you come out here into Southern Utah and you have time to be alone, this is spending time alone. This is coming into the wilderness. This is being your own source of truth. This is a full digital detox, understanding the root cause and healing and understanding. And the Solitude event, it's a community of women who are also working through stress and burnout. It is other people who are signing up to create change in their life. This event, I've only ever seen women, and I work with a few men. So sometimes I work with men, but mostly it's with women who leave feeling like they have finally had the time to think about and trust themselves enough so that they can move forward and create a change. They finally realize what boundary needs to happen or how their mindset needs to shift, because all of you guys are busy. You're busy. You are. That's the fact of the matter is. And if you don't have time to create change, if you're constantly moving through all of these things, you're never going to be able to truly get down to the root cause. And that's what I love to focus on, is giving you the time and space to listen to yourself, to know that your feelings and emotions are true. At this event, it's 3 days. It's down here in Southern Utah. We do yoga, meditation, therapeutic groups. It's 24 to 30 hours of uninterrupted time just for you. there's ceremonies recognizing growth and change, a full digital detox, replenishing the mind, inspiration, and everything is provided for you. All of your gear, all of your food, everything is 100% provided. Sorry, I was trying to find the next slide. I couldn't see it immediately. So that is the Solitude event. We have the Solitude event. We have the online course. They are both incredible and beautiful ways to get to the root cause of your burnout. And they are the ways that I love to work with you and that I see work. So my offer and your opportunity. My offer for you, each and every one of you has the opportunity for a free grounding call with me. And this is valued at $150. This is a burnout coaching session. This is going through what your personal burnout is like. And this is 100% free. Each of you guys after this call are going to get an email. And in that email, we'll have a link to sign up for a call. If you sign up for this call in the next week, you have the opportunity to get, you guys all get $600 off the Solitude event. The online course is included with the event sign up. So if you sign up for the Solitude event, you not only get $600 off, but you get the online course for free. And then if you want just the online course, you get a discount code. This will also be in the email, so don't worry too much about it. But Burnout 1 is good for about $197 off and is good for 1 week following this call. You guys are all going to get an email. So hopefully the email that you signed up with is a good email for you. If it's not, send me a message. But the big thing I want to drive in here is that I want to talk to you guys. Like, I want to hear about your burnout. I want to create community. I want to be your friend, because I'm not just like a person. I know I'm a person on a screen in a tiny little box right now. And it's kind of weird that we do everything this way. But my hope is let's be friends. Let's figure it out. Let's go in deep. Let's real talk, man. Like, let's do the real talk. That's kind of my thing. So lastly, follow us on, if you're not already following us on Instagram, definitely follow us on Instagram. I'm also on LinkedIn, which is also at Grounding Source, but it's Marissa O'Grady Kessner, which will also be in the email, as well as like TikTok and Facebook. All of those are great places to follow us. And if you don't have any questions right now, which we'll get to in a second here, send them to me on Instagram or reply to the email that I'm going to be sending out to you guys. And before we go into questions, these are all of the Solitude event dates. Look at them, write them down. If you want to get that deal, we're going to sign up in the next. That deal is good. The $600 off is all good until the end of the month. At the end of the month, that expires. So get your call in, chat with me, let me know. And this is where, what are your guys' questions? What are your guys' questions about burnout, about stress, about completing the stress cycle? Type them into the chat or whatever feels good. But yeah, let me know any and all of your questions. And to start off, I'll say often a question that I get from people is, do I have to do this every day? Like, do I always have to be completing my stress cycle? The answer is, do it as often as you can. Don't make completing your stress cycle a stressor. You know, so many of us have so many things that are stressful. Don't make completing your stress cycle the stressor. Try it as often as you can. Do as much as you can. Try to go for a walk. Try to dance, let go, have fun, play, whatever it is. But please just start trying. Don't make it a stressor itself. I'll wait here for an extra couple minutes. Let me know if you guys have any questions at all. I appreciate you guys all being here so very much. And if questions come up afterwards, just send them to me on Instagram or follow or send me the email back. Thank you very much. And I want to know what's stressing you guys out. So that's super helpful. Thank you so much. Solid event. Sounds neat. Awesome. You'll get an email that sends more, and then also sign up for a call. Everybody sign up for a call. Let's chat about it. I can tell you all the details, as well as help you guys getting to the root cause of your burnout. Like, let's start off strong. Let's figure out what's going on with you. Thank you everybody for showing up. Thank you for being present, and those of you guys in whatever form that looks like for you. Yeah, and go over, follow me on Instagram, and sign up for a call. You'll get the email in the next couple of hours. So don't worry about that. And make sure and check it by the end of the day, check your junk mail. Sometimes the emails go to your junk. And you really want to make sure that you get this. There's tons of great offers and there's tons of great resources. There's going to be a resource specifically on women's burnout, what that looks like. It has all of this information in like a PDF format. That's going to be really helpful. And I love to give it out to anybody that I know. It's kind of a Spark Notes version of things. So let me know anything else. And if you have, good night from South Africa. Yes, good night from South Africa. That is so cool. Amazing. Well, thank you for showing up. If anybody has questions, feel free to send them to me. And I appreciate y'all.